Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence afterwards. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Campbell?
Here.
Road Commissioner Greenan?
Here.
Chairman Onan?
Here.
Member Thompson?
Here.
And Mr. Warner is absent today with prior notice.
Okay. Well, to approve the agenda here, are there any changes, additions, or deletions? I have none.
Can I ask if our newest member, is she officially a member yet?
No.
She will not. Not till January 1st. She'll be sworn in.
Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move we approve the agenda shown.
Second. Motion by Garth and second by Rick. In favor of the motion,
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. And I'd like to consider the approval of the minutes. Did everyone get a chance to look them over? We did.
Yep.
And any discussions or changes? No changes. Okay.
I'd move we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Al and second by Garth. And they're in favor of the motions. Here, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we have minutes. Public comment. Nobody here, I see. And so what I'd like to do here is eventually turn it over to Pat. He's got a PowerPoint that he wants to, and I just give you a little background, I guess. When we got the report from Spicer, Pat and I went through it, and he expressed to me, that he has this program that he can run the report through, and it generates. So it's really a AI program, okay, and I think it's a good tool. I think it's a good tool, but we got to be careful with AI, and I think it did generate, actually a pretty accurate, because we both went through the report, and did cross-checking and fact-checking, and it seemed like it put together a pretty good summary.
Yeah, it's been a topic during the county commission, the AI policy, and I think that it's really good for getting the ball rolling. When you get kind of writer's block, where to start. I think it works really well in team scenarios, and then it's good to get you started. Then you go over it, and I had Tim with me, and we even called up Charles Smith, and I was able to send him the PowerPoint that I generated based on the outline. And then he made a couple of small corrections, and he was actually was somewhat impressed with how thorough it was put together. So I think it is a good tool, but as per county policy, it's really good to work at a team so that you just don't kind of let it fly. And at the end of the day, we're here presenting this, to you and the public, so we're gonna own this information. So it's up to us to make it as accurate as possible.
Yeah. And we actually had a couple other engineers that, they were impressed with its, what it produced. And one engineer did point out, which we corrected. And I'll let you discuss that.
Yeah. Well, like any kind of writing, the revisions are good. Second, third draft, get more eyes on it. Do you want me to just launch in?
Yeah, why don't you launch into it, Pat?
Okay, good morning, everyone. What we wanted to put together was basically a reaction to the Spicer report that we had done in September. And this is our take on it. We've got a couple of things that we need your input on. We have some plans of action. That's exactly what they are. They are plans of action. Doesn't mean they're the best ones, doesn't mean they're the only ones, but that's why we have you guys on the Dam Authority. So I'll try to just jump in here and I'll rapid fire these a little bit. If you want me to slow down, let me know. You can always go back and read this. The current overall condition, we also factored in the inspections that we had on file. So we tried to see if there's any kind of trend when we produced those. But the overall dam rating is satisfactory. There were no major safety concerns or deficiency under normal conditions. And you can kind of see the chart right down the way. The note that Chris Smith brought up from Spicer is that the PMF, the probable maximum flood, is large as theoretically possible. Flood had been routed to the dam part. That is, according to that's the doomsday scenario, that's but Spicer did conclude that the 200-year storm can be passed. So that's where we're at with that. Our hazard potential on that is high, and that means failure can cause loss of life.
I had a question. When they say it's adequate for the 200-year potential flood, they're not making any assessment on the damage or the function in the surrounding. In other words, keeping the lake level under control. They're just saying the dam mechanics are able to handle it.
Yeah, that's for and there's specific criteria. They describe that what the cubic feet of water volume passing through, and that leaves in the report, and they determine that it can sustain that much. And there is, I can't remember if they referenced the PFM in the report or not, but it's like it's a doomsday scenario. If that's happening, there's other things.
The dam survives, but we don't.
Okay, good point.
The key structural issues that the report found were left downstream abutment foundations. There's deep spalling proposed rebar that was noticed in 2022. It's unchanged. It's still present. That's a high priority. The action time frame on that would be sometime between 27 and 29. The other one is a new half-inch full perimeter crack that is on the Pier 1 upstream face. And that was new with this inspection. Same, that's a little urgent in terms of monitoring that. The reference that I have down there, that was 6.8 recommendations that's in the DI inspection. I think it's I'm not sure about the appendix, but it's in the DI inspection, a big chunk of it. Then the other one that they think needs a design for repair is the spalling and scaling at the spillway apron and cutoff wall. The hydraulic gate, stop logs and piers, there's some mineral buildup, but the priority for that is as we observe it through our normal inspection.
But I asked, what is spalling?
Spalling is just when it's like the erosion or where the concrete starts to fall off.
Oh, okay.
Exposed to the rebar. Our annual probability of failure is low. I added the highlighted section there that means there's a 1 in 10,000 chance every year of failure. The consequence obviously is code restaurant, falling waters, anything downstream of the area. And I ran the 2022 numbers for the replacement costs with inflation, and full replacement would be 4.6 million. So that's kind of what would be at stake. And then the overall riskiness we have was moderate. We're going to talk about dominant potential failure modes. I'll talk more about our potential failure modes assessment, and three that were prominent are the progressive concrete degradation, spalling and cracking we just mentioned, hydraulic gate or actuator failure, or extreme flood overtopping. Those are our most dominant potential failures. So this is our plan for addressing concrete deterioration at Leland Dam. I just put that there because I learned something new. That's our dam ID for 510. So if you talk to an engineer, they've got a database they can look up, and that's what we tell them about addressing. So to address these issues, if we want to do immediate monitoring in the next 6 months, something we could do is install crack gauges and vibration sensors. There's an issue of practicality because the issues that we have are underwater, so that adds another level of degree of difficulty in monitoring these cracks. And we would want to do a visual, obviously, monitoring these items that are underwater. We talked a little bit about maybe do camera on a pole is what we coined. You know, some of these might be in a location where we could get something as basic as a waterproof housing for an iPhone. You put it under there, you run the video, you get some screenshots. That's one way we might be able to monitor it. This is in theory. And then that, obviously what we're talking about is data logging and alerts. On the next page, I'll talk a little bit about the technical options for monitoring these cracks. And we would track that through the facilities department. We have our maintenance management software, we do entries, and keep track of that. And this is just what that gauges on the Pier 1, the abutment apron, we put crack gauges on there. And I learned about these. I talked to Patrick and he explained what crack gauges were, and they bolt them on, and it's set, and it will actually show when it's compressing or expanding. Strain gauges or stress sensors, those are embedded in the concrete and we measure how much is being stretched. This is a technical term, SCADA. It's a computer system that collects data from all the sensors, so they have digital versions of all this. We do have potential to connect to the control room, so something like that may be possible. And basically that's a Fitbit for the dam. These are options. We have to research what that costs, and we kind of spitball what we guesstimate that's going to be based on the information we find. These are just a quick pass at some of the underwater diving repair providers in the area. I figured if I had to look up the report, I might as well keep it as a reference. There's a few who might be able to help us. We have to research this. So the midterm, in the next 6 to 18 months, so we're getting into July and later of 2026 and into 2027. One thing that they did emphasize at the dam conference that Tim found and had myself and Dwayne Flaska, our maintenance advisor, go to, they talked about how important it is to epoxy these cracks if at all possible, because we have an issue here with ice. When the water gets in, it expands and contracts. Now, I'm not an engineer, but a lot of these are below the water line, so I don't know if the water is actually getting in there and freezing or not. This is something, again, that we have to look at. But the cost to do something like that, as per the internet, was right around 30 to 50 grand for this short-term monitoring. And then we'd have to obviously start to design the more serious repairs that I'll get into, and you'd have to start putting in permits, and that would be something that Tim would probably take the helm on, and we'd be getting into that on quarter 1 of 2027. Grants, that's the magic word that gets thrown around here a lot. There's potential for some of these, especially if you're able to do some of these reports and assessments that I'll talk about at the end of the presentation, we may be able to apply to grants that help us with this. So here's a little bit of a timeline for the two major repairs that were mentioned in the diet report that they recommended, and it's the epoxy seal and patch on the spalling, and the resurface the apron cutoff, riprap. That would obviously have to be done by a licensed contractor, and that would have to be designed, that whole repair, and that's pretty hefty repair. So the estimated cost is going to be $100,000 to $250,000. And also it requires, post-repair validation systems. If we go down the sensors route, you have to maintain sensors. There is a, I forgot to remove that. We don't have to do a 5-year FEMA risk review because we are not a hydroelectric, so we don't have to do the FEMA. But rerunning the primary failure mode modelings for rainfall changes, that's something that we need to pay attention to as well. On just the information that I printed you so far, I'm looking at total planned cost of $170K to $375 over the next 2 years. Then it estimates, with grants, $42,000 to $94,000 for the next 2 years. But that requires a discussion on grants, and that was one thing that I talked to about, or I've been talked to when I got hired about pursuing. I have to work that out with the administrator and figure out how he wants that.
Jim, yeah, could I have you sit up here, Jim? So, yeah. Morning.
Morning. Since review of the report, first of all, I did give a thumbnail sketch to the county commission last night and in writing last week about the report, and included a copy of the report, the full report to the board.
Okay, thank you.
In the limited research I've been able to do, it seems that you have a leg up on grant funding if you do two things. Make contact with the dam safety office, Eagles Dam Safety Office, indicating you're starting the process and you want to get involved with them. And they'll lend some assistance with that, number one. And number two, having the what was that? PFMA.
Yeah.
Getting that going. So we're actually actively pursuing that to make sure we're having a performance failure analysis done on a regular basis, and possibly even the tabletop exercises that are recommended to
Right.
to show that you're actually actively involved in addressing the problem.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. When
and those are steps we can take that won't cost us any money
Right.
away. We can
Right.
start the process of getting in touch with the dam office and possibly pursuing the
Right.
PFMA process.
Yeah, we did, Pat had a talk with Matt too, our emergency service director there, and
Yeah, we've definitely looked him.
yeah.
And Jim's absolutely correct. We found the same things when we started to dig into this, and the little section that I included in your handout, and we'll review it again at the end of the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So what we're looking at as the maintenance department, facilities department, is preventive maintenance schedule. I put it down as an outline for our annual cycle. We're typically doing them much more frequently than this, but this is a minimum. So you've got a visual inspection, lake level checks, debris removal, dam control monitoring, vegetation control. We're doing that almost daily. So that's a weekly thing that we do. Quarterly, detailed visual, submerged check of the abutment. Again, I talked about camera on a pole. The Pier 1 is one thing that we monitor closely. And full hydraulic gate tests. I'm pretty sure that Dwayne does those. He couldn't be here this morning because he's busy with the 911 remodel. But I'm pretty sure he's been doing those at least semi-annually, if not quarterly. Then semi-annually, we lubricate the actuators, mow trim, vegetation. Then, as Jim discussed, and as we will discuss here shortly, the emergency action plan, tabletop exercise, obviously budget reviews, Eagle reporting, and then we have our triennial formal inspection and underwater dive. So talking about the emergency action plan, the one that's on file right now was written in 1998. There were changes recommended in 2024 that were never fully implemented or adopted. It needs a current update and evaluation of viability based on current conditions. And we'll write the PFMA, potential failure mode analysis. We identified predetermined PFM was already identified in the report. This is just a short definition, and it's a systematic team-based engineering process used to identify and strive to prioritize every credible way to fail and produce a reservoir. And these are the unique sequence of events that, the cascade effect as the sequence progress mechanism to reach a failure. This I mentioned in the last slide, because we're not federal hydropower, we're not required to do the 5-year FEMA test, but it's in the PFMA it's not required, but as Jim just mentioned, it's much in the same way we do the 5-year parks plan, it helps us get grants.
Yeah.
So, obviously when I identify anything hidden, those pathways, and that will drive our targeted monitoring, prioritizing repairs, and it becomes the foundation of our quantitative and quantitative risk analysis. This just referenced some. I did actually research these. If you guys want to read about it, even though it's in Michigan, some failures. I have those resources available if you guys are interested and you don't know about that. So this is just going through some typical failure modes that get identified in this process: overtopping, internal erosion, concrete degradation, which we've talked about, the hydraulic gate failure. There's not a lot of seismic activity here, but it is possible, and obviously misoperations, operator error. Here's an illustration of what we might do. So you talk about the initiator, a major spring flood or ice jam. That's something that's quite possible here. The loading condition that happens, the failure mechanism, how that progresses, and we go over the adverse factors, favorable factors, consequence, and determine what our current risk level is. And, kind of got into it already, but why we should conduct a report. We have 2 emergent concrete issues. We know that single hydraulic actuators and no mobility, as mentioned, provides justification for grants, and it feeds into our ongoing monitoring. And what the county actually is all around is a next generation monitoring technology. This is our recommendation that we schedule a full PFMA workshop in 26 and 27. Both the Drain Commissioner and myself, we have contact with GEI, and we reached out to them just to kind of have them discuss this. I'm going to try to get a member from GEI to come in and elaborate on this for the January meeting. We can, if that works for you guys, to come in and maybe from an engineer standpoint explain this process in detail. So we've already took the steps that Jim was talking about. We're trying to engage with people to figure out how this is done and facilitated. The tabletop exercise, this is, I'll let it define it. It's a discussion-based simulation. It's a talk, it's a walk. We get all the stakeholders involved, sit around the table, we go through, we come up with one of those potential failure modes that could have been generated by a PFMA, and we go through it. We do a dry walkthrough of what would happen if. And I think this would be a great strategy to pick a different failure mode every year, and then generate discussion that helps shape our monitoring.
And there's there's an incentive to do that, right? When it comes to the grants.
Absolutely, that's what Jim found in his research.
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to quantify.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that if you are actively engaged in a dam safety program, they're more likely to give you money to
Mhm.
fulfill that program than if you're just lackadaisical or, you know,
Right.
not paying attention to just filing your
Right.
or your report, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Just a quick walk through what that process looks like. 1 to 3 months of planning, you get all the stakeholders notified, involved. Get the participants selected. Exercise, it takes 2 to 4 hours. Debrief and after action, and like I said, that's what shapes our emergency action plan update. We want to get that done 30 to 60 days after the exercise. Here's an example scenario. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I won't read the slides to you, but this is sort of the process that you go through. We've talked about this a little bit already, but I'll go ahead and go through the bullets. As I mentioned earlier, we need to judge the viability of our current plan and make appropriate changes. And it needs to be continually updated. It needs to be updated annually.
I got a question about the EAP. So has there been, here with the government property, has there been like EAPs that are done here on the campus?
Sure.
Yeah.
They're on the file. That's
Yeah.
under the kind of the purview of emergency management. Before I kind of launched into all this, I called Matt over there and I said, what do you have on file? And are you okay with me? Because this involves, I'm going into his line
Right,
a little bit.
right.
And we have their support. And
Yeah.
they said they will support us in this whole process.
So when was the last EAP done here on this campus?
The full one was done in '98. It was created.
Oh, okay.
And I have the notes.
I think you're talking about, that's for the dam.
Yeah.
I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know when
But the
when
campus,
was done.
okay.
For the campus.
Yeah,
I know,
yeah, right, okay.
and frankly, we should be doing tabletop exercises for this campus. That's something that
Yeah,
I need.
well, I guess the thing is, when something does happen, that's probably one of the first questions asked. When was the last time you did an EAP?
Right. And one of the things, we did, the most recent thing we did was active shooter response training for the entire staff. That was
Yeah.
very well attended,
Yeah.
surprisingly. Well, not surprisingly, but it was very
Yeah.
well attended.
Yeah, okay,
From my background, they say that you don't rise to the occasion in an emergency. You rise to your highest level of training.
Yeah.
yeah,
These exercise cycles, it prepares us for functioning, for skill choice. The resources, we have them on campus for the most part. In my discussions with people who are involved in doing this for a living, I think it's very important that at least for the first one, we have this facilitated and walk through. We may be able to get to the point where we can do tabletop exercise on our own, but we need to see how it's done by a professional first. This is the important one. If anything ever happens, we'll be asked why we never conducted an exercise.
yep,
So that's our recommendation, is to schedule one annually. This is what the AI said the cost was. I know, again, from my discussion, the tabletop is less expensive in terms of facilitator and materials. You're going to pay probably 2 times, at least more than that. You have the PFMA, the analysis of potential failure modes done, because that's an involved engineering process. That is at the scale of this inspection, because not only are they going to take the information from the inspection, they are going to calculate, as engineers, how these things could go wrong. That's questions and discussion.
I got a list. If the primary gate were to malfunction and lock in place up or down, it seems like there are 2 scenarios. In the summertime, it would likely be up, the lake level is up. And then a rain event creates problems around the shoreline. In the wintertime, when it's down and if it locked in the lower position, there's not a lot we can do to bring the water level up. So when we do some kind of a review, you almost have to do two separate reviews for a failure.
Right, and obviously the impact is different. If we had a catastrophic failure today, that's different than second week of July.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a whole different outcomes because there's not a lot of people there. But if everybody in Fishtown in the middle of busy season, that's a lot more for the sheriff to get people out of harm's way.
Yeah. Question about the crack, the upstream crack. I'm familiar with strain gauges, and we put them all over every aircraft that is old, and sometimes new aircraft. B-52 has 440, 460 strain gauges, and we watch crack propagation in two directions, the length of the crack and the opening of the crack. And two questions about the crack that's upstream. When we look at the dam and I read the report, are we always looking downstream?
That's my understanding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
general.
at the beginning of the report,
Okay.
yeah, you mentioned that, yeah.
Okay. So when somebody says the left abutment, that's on the south side.
That's my understanding.
Okay. And I also, this is a question, not a statement. When you try to repair a crack with a polymer, there are polymers, I believe, that work underwater, but is that true or not true?
That's a known unknown. You know, I would presume that the technology is out there. That's why I listed the people who may potentially I could call and you know dive more research and say what is it that you could do? Are you able to do that underwater? That's a huge factor because you know it's not that heavy a lift to go out to something above water and epoxy it, but underwater not only for the repair, which is the bigger portion, but the monitoring. It's a technical situation. I mean, you know, you don't want to put, you want to refrain from putting a diver or a person in the water as much as possible. Huge liability risk. So again, that was just talking with the drain commission. We're like, well, maybe camera on a pole, you know, and we could, once the gauges are installed, we could maybe monitor them that way. And then the other thing that occurred to me is, you know, we pay $30,000 to $50,000 to monitoring these, which is, you know, which is a smart investment. However, if we are going to schedule a major overhaul and repair for 2027, and that's going to be a part of that, how much do we want to, is that a gamble, you know, not doing it and trying to save for the big repair in 27, or is that acceptable risk? That's what I'm presenting to the Dam Authority to help us determine the course of action.
And for the actual repairs, a lot of times there's an installation of a coffer dam that isolates a dry area near the abutment where the repair would be made.
And that would be a major repair.
Yeah, it just depends on how the engineers can you know, make what recommendation they make.
Dow Chemical has polymers for repairs of all sorts, and I didn't get a decent answer. What I got was a lot of questions when I asked can you do all these repairs underwater? You need to know the flow, you need to know the water temperature, you need to know barometric pressure, and do you want to heat the repair underwater?
Yeah.
I got a list of questions that I basically gave up and said, okay, I don't know enough to even ask the right questions. But apparently, I believe we can make a repair underwater for the upstream crack.
Perhaps the one crack that's newly discovered is one thing, but I think the major repair that's been ongoing and known for the last 8 years or so, possibly that would require some isolation of it. It's not just filling a crack.
Okay.
It's a large mobilization.
My understanding is the proposal, if I read the report correctly, would require some steel sheeting.
Yeah,
that sort of
that's
thing,
right.
Install that. And I can't imagine, well, they probably can do pound that in.
Yeah.
Without,
Just to mobilize though a barge and equipment to do the sheeting, you're minimum of 100 grand right there probably.
so,
You know, just to mobilize.
yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Enough questions.
But, oh, do we have Charles Smith? Did he call in, Pat, or? Oh, you there, Charles? Have you been able to hear the discussion?
We'd love to hear some input from your perspective.
Well, I think the presentation together.
Can you turn him up? Can we turn?
Just speak up there a bit.
Charles, can you speak up just a little bit? We're having some audio issues. If you project a little more, we might be able to hear you better.
I guess it's something for us. I don't like your security and partaking in part of the team in the last few inspections. Yeah. So thank you for having us as part of the team. And I think everything was relatively well covered with regards to the epoxy. I believe underwater epoxies are possible. Conditions are always better if we can have a dry working environment. Possible sheeting, I think you guys are right about there. One of the difficulties about the Leland Dam is implementing the sheeting in close proximity to with all the rest of the facilities that are formerly known as fish mounds. So it's not an easy place to work. But there's going to be additional fees for those difficulties. But I guess, does anyone have any direct questions for myself or the supervisory group team?
Hey, Charles, the volume just got turned up on you. Could you, just for the board here, identify yourself again?
Oh, well, so I apologize. I'm Charles Smith, I'm an professional engineer out of the state of Michigan. I work for Spicer Group out of St. John's, Michigan, and have been part of the inspection team on the Leland Dam for the last 2 inspections. I'd like to thank you guys for incorporating us as part of the team. I know Sean Middleton isn't on today, but he's been the primary contact with Spicer here and has a vast experience with dams. I think the presentation was very well put together. Definitely headed in the correct direction with all these thoughts. With regards to sheeting, working with dry and working with wet, working with dry is always preferred. It's a more controlled environment, as some of the discussion said. There's a lot of variability and flows involved, so I think you guys are on the right track. I'd be interested in listening into the January.
Charles, from your perspective, is there an optimal time that if we do this big mobilization, just based on your experience, when would be the optimal time to mobilize a large barge and so forth?
Well, there's difficulties outside of normal operating here in fish town, so you have to put it into perspective. The tourist and when tourism peaks, and fall is probably not the best time to do it, but typically late August, September through October, you want to look at your driest months. That's when flows can be controlled at the cheapest cost.
Are you familiar with any of the polymers, that have been used on cracks?
We've utilized them on a couple of concrete structures. I am an environmental engineer focused on hydraulics and stream restoration dam inspections, but we do have a structural team as well versed in that. I don't want to speak for them. I'd rather they bring to the table the best polymers and the sealants that are available for cracks. We've implemented them on several aging structures in the past, and they do benefit the length of the concrete life substantially.
Pat, do we have any pictures that show the actual crack?
We do.
They're in the report.
the big report.
Big report.
Right there. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to leaf down in there, but,
I may be able to call up.
let's see if I can put my fingers on there. There we go.
Charles, might I ask you your confidence level in the estimates? Are these, you're trying to project out the future and trying to figure out other companies and what they may come in at.
The cost estimates for the construction,
For the repair, yeah.
yeah, I was not involved with those estimates. And I'd like to take a deeper look at them and look at the construction sequencing and what would be needed to make the repairs. And this, I've had a day to review the presentation. And
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
So if you would like us to look into the feasibility and cost estimates, it's something we would be more than willing to assist with.
I think, our next, maybe between now and our next meeting, we could cross that bridge.
Might I also ask you, there's a mention of grants. Might I ask you what those sources are? And what are the probabilities of getting grants for these small repairs? Or are they reserved for more, in general, bigger operations, bigger dams, hydraulics, dams?
I think it's very important, as you all stated, with dam safety. This is step one in everything. The dam safety team here in the state of Michigan is a great group of people to work with. They will point you in the right direction. I work with them regularly on many projects. The dam risk reduction grant is one that has been heavily funded since the Leelanau failures. Fortunately, this last period funding for this year has been divvied out already, and the grant funding has dried up. Mason, with the dam safety team, has indicated that there are some projects where funding was not fully allocated, so there may be portions of grant funding returned to the state, and that will be put out for additional repairs on other structures. One thing to keep in mind, the dam risk reduction grant does not fund maintenance. It funds more substantial repairs and efforts to reduce risk to lots of them. And that's their primary focus. The grant funding for this last batch was heavily geared towards shovel-ready projects or projects that were near bid and being ready to be built. There's been 3 years, I believe, of this dam risk reduction grant implemented, and it's primarily been focused on removal of dams or repair of dams if risk capacity issues and items like that are a key critical factor. Grant funding for repairs is limited. The state is pushing for removals of dams rather than rehabilitation in many aspects. Now, I understand that that is not an ideal situation for the Leland Dam, just based on my opinion and view of fish down and all the upstream.
That would be bad.
Yeah. Fair.
I don't think that would be
It's a lake level dam. It's a local lake
Yeah,
level dam.
yeah.
So we could take it out if we wanted to.
It's an icon is what it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
We'd go back to Carp River.
Yeah, you're right.
Drop level Lake Leelanau.
Yeah.
We don't have enough room here.
So, I just wanted to iterate that there are a lot of funding options for removal of dams via the fish this is at the national level for the fish passage program and the DNR fisheries grants, but they wouldn't apply in this case.
Makes sense.
And the federal funding is in flux right now, as everyone has been watching, so no guarantees there for the next coming year. But if we hear of any rehabilitation, your grant funding, I'll definitely keep saving.
Great.
That doesn't sound like very good odds for us.
I've got a question about Pier 1, the new crack that was found. It's a half-inch crack that wasn't identified in the previous inspections. That's a fairly, quarter inch, no, half inch it says. That's a fairly substantial crack. And it says it extends around the perimeter. Is there any structural concerns about that potential failure due to that crack?
I'm looking for you to share with everyone. So our first response to any new discovery is, one, we haven't observed it before. The last dive inspection was completed in 19, so it's been quite a few years. It may have been overlooked. Monitoring is step one. Putting a monitoring gauge on it, utilizing and exercising the gauge to see if there's any movement with the gauge, or would be the first recommendation. And if there is, then I would recommend that we pull a structural engineer in to look at it and determine that. Again, I'm not a structural engineer, so I don't want to speak on behalf of him. But there are concerns that this is a larger crack than half inch. So step one would be sponsored.
So really, from what I get from what you just said, it's a high recommendation to get some some crack gauges or monitoring,
Absolutely, yes.
A question about crack gauges. Do they measure the opening, the depth, or the length?
There's different gauges that can be implemented in ways of, the ones I've seen and utilized on a lot of dam infrastructure are just simple ones that you mount to the wall to measure the width. The length is something that can be documented as well. Sounds like there's a pretty well-versed team on board for gauges here. If you have recommendations other than a static wall-mounted gauge, I think SCADA implementation would be wonderful. If that's something that everyone sees fit.
So when you get into the more sophisticated gauges, that obviously there's a big difference in price, and also the way they're monitored too, I would think, and how often. Our control room there, Pat, this is something that
We have internet going to the control room for the monitoring of the control devices themselves. Also, we have digital cameras. And so we do have internet in the control room. So it seems to me like there's capability of that.
right. So Charles, like you say, when you get into more sophisticated gauges, this is something, since we have a control room that's got the internet and that, it's right there. This is something you see that we can implement without much difficulty.
Absolutely. I'm sharing the report here from Great Lakes Engineering who completed the dive inspection. So here's a photo of the crack off to the right here. Some zebra mussel shells if you look on this top portion here.
And like you say, this is something that might have just been missed from the last inspection. It could have been there, is what you're saying? It could have been there, but it just was missed? I thought.
They stated it as new in 2025. or just what was identified in the 2025 inspection. So, you know, it may have been covered with mussels at the time of the 2019 inspection. It'd be worth going back to Great Lakes and maybe digging out their video files of the last dive to get a better look at the same location. That's something you can coordinate.
Charles, I'm guessing that the critical point is this crack rather stable, or is it growing? And if it is growing, at what rate? I mean, it could be this crack is more stable and not that big of a long-term problem, or are they usually developing a long-term problem?
So again, this is our first data point. We only have one observation on it. So continuing to observe, more frequent observations are probably better at this point, seeing you don't have much data on the crack. I'd continue, maybe put it on a biannual review, and again, using a camera on a stick, if you will, would be a cheap solution for the time being to be able to observe this daily or as needed until we determine if there is movement.
Some don't move though. Am I correct in saying that?
Correct.
Okay.
Charles, is it fair to say that the cheapest way to monitor this would be some sort of crack gauge, and which we'd have to pay for someone to install, and then monitoring with a pull on a stick? Is that probably the basement level of monitoring this?
Correct, yeah. Well, the base level would be to physically measure it, right? But if you put in a gauge, you're looking at a static point in time. Each time it's the same exact location. So it's the best. That's what would be recommended for your baseline observations.
And then the high end is using the SCADA technology.
Yeah, that would be real time, wonderful. You can monitor it from a safe location.
Right now, like do something for how they
What's that?
check that out.
What's that? I couldn't hear you, Jim.
Possibly, our insurance carrier provides grants for hazard mitigation devices. That might be right into that. I'll check that out for sure.
Okay.
So to kind of summarize all this, it looks like that moving forward, the two areas we need to monitor or focus on is monitoring for the crack and the other issues. So figuring out how we're going to address monitoring them. And then the second part is how we're going to address things like the potential failure mode analysis and the tabletop. So there's two things that we're going to have to run concurrent.
We have a kind of, I know you estimated the tabletop at 5,000. But what about the monitoring? What can we get a ballpark on that?
I have to make more phone calls. Like I said, I have some contacts at, and so does the drain commissioner at GEI. And again, that's what these guys do for a living, is GFMAs, that's their bread and butter. So from that, I might be able to reach out to say who does this sort of thing.
We could get an estimate from them that it's $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, whatever it might be to install monitoring equipment. At the very least, we could make a background inquiry to them on our thing. I'm not sure. I think they're reimbursement grants though, which might be a little bit problematic. I'll find that out by the next meeting.
Okay. Great.
Spicer Group implement SCADA technology as well, so we can pull together a comparable quote for you to look at.
That would be amazing. You could do that.
That'd be tremendous.
That would help us out a great deal.
Is that something we could get between now, let's say that there's a good chance we'll be meeting like towards the end of January? And it's something we could get from you, Charles?
Let me discuss with the team, Tim, and I'll
Okay.
be back in touch.
Sure,
I'll get the gears rolling today.
okay,
Certainly get a response by late January from MMRA if that's even an eligible
Okay.
grant funding category.
okay, that'd be great,
I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
okay.
So then just so, to summarize some of this, those are the things that we want done in the direction moving out, is to get numbers assigned to all these ideas. So how much is it gonna cost for PFMA? How much is it gonna cost for a tabletop exercise? And how much will it cost to monitor the cracks and the other concerns?
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions, or?
One last question, how deep is this crack? What's the water depth?
For the water depth?
Can't too much.
It's probably in the report, to tell you the truth, I mean, is he writing the
Well, I think-
PowerPoint?
I think-
So, I can get back to you on that and go out there.
I think at the time of the inspection, it was like at least 2 feet under, but I don't remember the depth of the water there.
No, that's another great thing to pursue. Well,
Yeah.
actually take a look at where it's located to see if our camera on this is but
Yeah.
You have a camera on the stick?
I think I can do it with an iPhone now.
I have an iPhone housing.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, shoot.
Well, thank you, Charles, for attending,
Not a problem.
and if there's no other questions for Charles, I guess,
I have none.
I have none.
okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for attending, Charles.
Thank you. Glenn.
Yep, bye-bye. Well, if there's no other, did you want to finish up with are you done with your?
I think, yeah, I was at questions and discussions. So
Okay, all right.
we did that.
Okay, good. I guess we'll move on to our second.
Well, I did have a question on funding. I mean, this
Oh,
is
okay.
not for 2 years down the road, but we don't have this in our capital improvement plan.
Nope, we gotta get it in there.
And so,
This report makes it imperative that we get it into the
sure,
the coming budget year's CIP. Good news is, nobody's saying you gotta do this tomorrow.
yeah.
It's a 5-year, or basically a 4-year road.
Sometime between 27 and 29, you should exactly repairs.
When we built the dam, I think it was, we as in the county rebuilt the dam, I think it was half was paid by riparians and half was paid by the county. A little bit of a political struggle, as you can imagine on that. But I don't think we see anything long-term down the road that it would require any kind of, it'd be, yeah, but just as far as creating the district would be
Unless you had
expensive.
Unless you had a Sanford Dam failure, where it drained like Leelanau.
Hush.
The good news is, we're not an irresponsible private owner.
Yeah.
We're dealing with this issue. And again, the only reason we're classified as moderate risk is we're coupling a high hazard with a low probability, and you get moderate risk out of that. So that was some comfort in reading the report.
Yeah,
We're only moderate because the risk is so high, not the probability of, I'd much rather have it reversed with a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have it that way than reversed with a,
Yeah.
high probability of failure with a low consequence of the failure.
It seems extremely misleading, and especially for a dam that basically dumps into Lake Michigan. So anyways, it's beyond me how it's a moderate risk.
I think when they really are evaluating it, Commissioner, is not so much they do classify it as high hazard as a high potential hazard for risk of life. But I think the real issue is property damage and the damage to the property rights of the riparian owners. Have you ever physically seen the Sanford Dam result?
When I drive by on I-75.
I mean, when you can actually look interior and see what the lake looked like after the dam, it was literally looked like a desert.
oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
saw
what I
that.
mean.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Exactly what I mean.
Yeah,
And in fact,
Yeah.
my daughter-in-law's family.
Not
lives in that
75
area.
US 10,
Yeah.
US
My daughter-in-law's family lives in that area, and they were saying, go buy that property now. People are selling it, and maybe in 5 years, you'll have
Mhm.
lakefront property.
Mhm.
But if that were to happen.
Maybe.
that would-
Yeah. Right.
Talk about catching hell.
Yeah.
So a mechanical question, if the dam primary gate is all the way up and it malfunctions, we can't move it, and it rains, can we still take boards? Is there hydraulic
Yes,
pressure?
yeah.
Yeah, there's
The boards can still be removed even though
Yes.
there's a lot of pressure on them?
I believe that happened this last spring or last winter. We removed a number of boards, and Dwayne has that down to a science and how the flow
Yeah.
is adjusted using boards, and that was Jerry Coleman's come through and strong.
Okay, so it's possible.
Yeah.
Good.
It's
No
not
other
precise,
questions?
but it's possible.
Yeah.
With permission.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you go.
I experienced that in Northport.
Mhm.
You allow, you take down dam
The,
boards.
the mill pad?
When it completely, the entire thing ended up in Lake Michigan,
Yeah.
and it was not pretty.
Well, yeah, if there's no other questions, you can move on to item 2. Alan?
Well, I had just brought that up so we can get it not on an agenda. And we brought up before one time, Jim, you had, my understanding is that our building department has said, look, this is a violation of the ADA. I went and talked to the owners of, a while ago, of the Cove, and they ended up in 2 lawsuits over ADA compliance. And they're good folks. They really try and do everything they could, and that all got mitigated. But
Are those recent lawsuits?
yeah, within the last year, 2 years, something like that.
Because I spoke to them this spring. One of the first things that I got roped into was that when they, in the early spring, when that gate mysteriously was tampered with and the lock was just disabled.
Right. But can we, I mean, I don't know what we got to do, but obviously I would say there was a crime there, and somehow that ended up open. And if our building department deems that it's a violation of ADA,
There's equivocation on that. Now, there is equivocation on whether that violates the ADA.
does it not violate the ADA, or?
Well, we've looked at that. It depends on how you interpret an accessibility route. The accessibility route on our property is intact. The only problem is, what you have to do is you go to the gate and you turn around and go the other way. We are not required, if the gate is intact and locked, we're not required to provide access from our property to another owner's property and maintain ADA compliance beyond our property.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, we comply. What I have been, in fact, I just spoke this week with our legal counsel on developing signage that basically says accessibility route ends, county property line here, accessibility route ends, or something that they're working on what that language ought to be. And we would post probably at the beginning of the summer or the swimming season or summertime season on that gate.
So we will have no liability, and we can leave that gate open.
I believe so. I wouldn't recommend taking the gate out because there might be
No.
times when we do want to lock it. But I think I'm reasonably certain that we don't have ADA liability on our property. And I'm also reasonably certain we're not required to provide a route to someone else's property that is non-ADA compliant. But that's interesting. If they've been sued or had complaints.
Not about the walkway.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking about the hotel's
Well,
property.
it's
having
just so old, yeah.
complaints about that, because originally, what happened was wasn't so much that the building department said that our walkway was ADA non-compliant. It was that the walkway going from our property to theirs, there was no continuous, what's called an accessibility route.
Mhm.
And if they wanted that to be open continuously, that there was some thought at the building safety department that they did need to install an ADA compliant ramp on their side at their expense, and they balked at doing that because the main reason is the ramp that they had available to them altered the not so much the accessibility to their premium room, but its view, I guess would be the best way to put it. It would have blocked or had people walking up in front of what they consider to be the premium, most desirable room. And they were very adamant about it. And that's when I decided we wouldn't lock the gate. We purchased the equipment to fix it, but we haven't installed it yet until we
Fix the gate? Oh, fix the gate, so that we could lock it.
Because it was basically what somebody did is they broke a key off in it and made it so, pounded it in so you couldn't get another key in. The lock would not work to lock the gate. Basically what we did is we took the lock
I just
out.
want to make sure that we don't go through a whole summer with a possible liability problem.
There were
for
actually
ADA.
two possible liabilities. One would be violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Mhm.
And I was I'm personally convinced that we would not have any liability whether the gate was there or not. The second question was whether there'd be property liability for having a gate when we knew people would be climbing over it, particularly people that may be alcohol impaired. That was the concern of having the gate locked permanently, because the owners of the hotel were saying, well, the people are going to climb over that gate.
Mhm.
And they were concerned about their own liability, and it'd be, liability that they were arguing we would share. And I was more concerned about that potential than the ADA potential, ADA liability potential.
Well, Pat and I sat in there, tried to calm down the owners, but at that time, the word from our building department was that gate had to stay locked.
Yeah,
So-
The ocean inspection as well.
right. That was, yes, and I don't have that in front of me, but that essentially did address that issue. My ocean inspection did address that issue.
And Myosha said, don't worry about it, or?
I had to,
They said, and you can help me remember this, but from my recollection, it was that we shouldn't block it because it limited the egress.
right,
We should not
we should not block
Yeah.
it.
block
They
it.
really were they were addressing less the ADA liability concern and more the people are going to climb over this gate and get hurt.
Like, say, kitchen fire at the cove,
Right,
Yeah.
right,
someone's on the walkway.
right.
So it sounds like more of those situations that you see in schools and businesses where you can go out, but there's signs there that say, do not exit, and sometimes
Right.
alarms go off,
Yeah.
sometimes whatever.
Well, you need an emergency access.
Yeah.
So right now, the level of our walking deck, the elevation of that deck, as you go onto the Falling Waters Lodge property, it's the same elevation? Is there any,
It's a step up for them, so.
It's a step up for them, and that's the point.
Well-
is our property is fully compliant. There's no variation in the level on our
Right.
property.
What I'm getting at, if the gate is open,
Right.
can a wheelchair go onto their property?
Not as currently
Okay.
configured, no.
Okay, so that actually helps us in liability, right? If the gate's open, that wheelchair is not gonna, unless they, they bump into it. You have a sign there that says, this is end of county property.
But more
And also-
importantly, end of the accessibility route.
Right, that's what I was gonna say, end of county property and accessibility. Yeah,
And there's a difference between being, open and secure. So if it's secure, you can't get through there. But if it's open, it's wide open.
right, but the thing is,
Which is why I think the optimal solution is to have a lockable gate there.
Yeah.
So we can lock if there are circumstances that need it, but to otherwise leave it unlocked for purposes of ingress and egress. Because the irony of this is Falling Waters Lodge folks were complaining that they have a big sign saying no trespassing.
yeah,
Or I may not say no trespassing, it says, I think,
Hotel use.
hotel
Yes.
use only, hotel guests only.
Right.
Beyond this point or
right,
something like
right,
that.
right.
When I pointed that out to him, it's like, well, we want our guests to be able to come back and forth, but we'll keep the riffraff out.
That's us.
Can't have it both ways.
Right,
Can't have it both ways.
right,
From an ADA perspective.
yeah.
I
Well,
just wish they decide to become compliant. That would solve the problem, but we can't force them to do that.
So our liability is as low as it can be.
Right now, in my opinion, that would be the case.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we have signs going in, and that, I'm just going by what the building department said, that we weren't in violation, and maybe they changed their minds, but signs we just didn't get any signs up this
right,
time.
okay. So, just to wrap this up, this authority doesn't need to act on anything, right?
Well, the administrator said he's gonna take
No, I
care
don't
of
think
it.
we need
Yeah,
to act on
right.
that at all.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we're to public comment. And hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner comments?
On the agenda for the next meeting, I'd like to bring up the payment for the gauge people, or person, I should say, Cal Killen. And I have been talking about the lake level monitor, water temperature monitor, the gauge at the Narrows isn't always performing the way it should. There are times when we get erroneous readings, and basically what he has indicated that it's probably seen its life, and we at some point need to replace it.
Oh, okay.
But it's not a big number. I don't have a dollar value, but at the next meeting, I'll see
Put it
it.
on the agenda.
Yeah, for the next meeting.
Okay.
I would just piggyback or add on to that we have those monitors up on the screen in the maintenance shop. So they're a crucial part for us in real time, continuous monitoring.
There've been a couple times when the water level at the Narrows was, I'd have to go back and look at the chart, but a foot and a half lower
Oh,
than at the dam. That's probably not real. The water would be flowing the other direction, so.
Right. So you're saying when you get on the website where you're seeing yeah. Okay. All right, well, we'll add that to the,
if I could clarify our role in this, is our end all to make a recommendation to the county board for a project? I don't think we have any authority to go buy this monitoring equipment or things such as that.
I would agree that that's most likely correct. I have to look into the dam authority statute, but I don't think you have, for example, you don't have a tax authority.
Right.
You don't have the right to budget or anything like that, to my knowledge, but typically, like other boards and commissions, they're recommending bodies to kind of work. But again, there might be things, for example, if we could install this equipment and it was less than $2,500, Pat and I would have the authority to do that, if we thought it was
Right.
prudent, without specifically, a direction from the county board, because it would be within our purchasing authority, if you were to direct us to do that. But again, assuming it's more, we would need board approval and have to follow the board purchasing policy.
Okay,
Yep, I'm good.
good, everybody? Yeah, well,
I
thank,
have just
Okay.
a comment. So you're talking about your next meeting. You do have an organizational session scheduled for January 28th, but that is just for the organizational part. So normally, if you're going to have another meeting, you would have to schedule the one immediately following that.
okay, so,
Your organizational, that's when, if you want or choose to set a schedule for 2026,
yeah,
year is when we would do that. But we had already scheduled organizational, last year for 2025, so we have that on the, calendar already.
okay,
That could be, if they desire, it could be a functional, operational meeting as well.
It could be typically, for whatever reason, the Dam Authority has always had organizational and then a separate meeting right after that. So I'm just letting you know.
I guess I think we would like to make it functional too,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
on the 28th of January?
Yep.
By functional, we could just have one meeting?
Right,
Yeah, just add to the
right,
agenda.
organizational and then functional too.
I like
We're-
that.
And that would be
Good.
helpful in getting the engineers from
Yeah.
GEI.
Yeah.
Or,
And-
a hard date to come help us out.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and I believe we'll have our new member sworn in before that. She said she'll be back in town the week of I don't have a calendar here, the 12th, I think, or she's gonna be,
We could do
yeah,
it before that meeting or whenever she wants.
yeah, okay. So yeah, that would be, does that sound good?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be the 28th, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wednesday, the 28th, 10 a.m.
10 o'clock.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. I want to thank you, Pat, for putting together a very good presentation. It's, in a short amount of time.
Excellent report.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Helpful.
yes, very. Well, if that's it, I motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Okay. Second. Sounds good. Meeting over.
Aye.